I read some amazing books this month. A couple that made me question my life choices, a couple that just made me break down and sob, and a couple that I just did not know whether I liked it at times or I wanted to throw it against the wall at times. But all of them I am grateful I have read. So I'm coming at you with 10 different books that I read this month. So here I go in no particular order, and I said 10 books, but it's actually 11 books because I read a book that I had read before. I reread it, and Storygraph didn't put it in there as a reread. And so that book that I reread was My Oxford Year by Julia Whalen, and I read it because I was part of this group that got to have chats with her, actually with the Julia Whalen, before it came out on the Netflix movie adaptation. Actually, did you know that the book is the adaptation of the movie screenwriting? So that was a new thing that I learned from Julia herself, which was exciting. I love talking to authors about their books because you find out all these different perspectives, the history, the context around which things were written and what the intentions were and all these things, right? Because things can be interpreted very differently based on the reader. So that was one that I read. Absolutely loved it. It is hitting home on so many different levels. It's kind of neat. I'm going to have a whole different video on this because there are so many thoughts I have about the difference between the movie and the book and all of that. But I did study abroad in Oxford, so that was just like a different part that tugged at my heartstrings. And there is so much of life decisions and how do you make the right one when you are a planner, which I am a planner. So I resonated with that as well. It's so deep. Even though they call it a rom-com, I don't think they really knew where to put it. And so because there's some comedic parts, they call it a rom-com, but it's really deep and heartbreaking in so many ways and heart mending in a lot of ways, healing in a lot of ways as well, as it shows you the good side of humanity also. So highly recommend My Oxford Year by Julia Whalen. What can she not do? She is amazing. Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green is another one that was recommended to me and I read it. It is fascinating, guys. My friend said they had this phase of being like, everything is tuberculosis because it dives into not only the disease, and I did not think I would be so captivated by a book about a disease that has been around for so long, but it goes into why it is not cured yet or why it is still such a big issue, even though there is a cure for this disease. And it ties into all the different issues we have in our society and our world, right? Of who is worth saving, where do the cures go? It is all kinds of stuff about the injustice of this world, and everything is tuberculosis. Everything can come back to that. Everything stems to similar issues that we have in our society. And if we could care about all people, not just certain people, there could be a lot better world that we live in. So I'm just going to leave it at that, but it was fantastic and totally worth a read. Frederick Bachman, My Friends, was one that I was anticipating and I picked it up. And this was one that I wanted to just like toss against the wall at times because I was like, oh my gosh, how much heartbreak and depressing stuff can I read in one chapter, let alone a book? And how many people have these stories? And I just kept crying about the different situations people are in. And I don't think I was expecting that going into this book. I really didn't have that many expectations. I didn't read spoilers. I didn't read all the stuff, right? But there's also such beauty in the fact that one person makes a difference in bringing people out of despair. One person can be the world to someone. Like, how can we be that one person to someone else? And we don't know we are that one person is the thing, right? we don't choose who we are that one person to. We just choose to love people, to care for people. It doesn't matter who they are. I guess it goes back to that everything's tuberculosis, right? It doesn't matter like what someone's background is, like how they're dressed, how they act, whatever. If we can act with kindness, if we can see the humanity in every single person and see them for who they are, there is a much more beautiful world that can come out of it. And you also see so much humor. I laughed in this book also, which is why I'm like, I don't know where to put this book. Like, I liked it, but it was so hard to read at times because it is so heartbreaking. But the interactions you have with these very opposite personalitied people, I just absolutely adored it. And it's like generational stuff too, because you see an 18-year-old that is interacting with like a 40s person, and then with older people like in their 60s or the 70s, or the parents of those 40-year-olds, right? So it is a fascinating read that I think you should read, even if you are like me and have triggers about domestic abuse or like child abuse. Just know that there are very prevalent things like that in there. And it is very hard, but it was worth the read for me to get through some of those parts where I wanted to throw the book against the wall, but I didn't. And I pat myself on the back for that. Book mail that I received. It is Manic, Pixie, Dream, Earl by Jenny Holiday, and it was marketed as Ted Lasso meets Bridgerton, which I've not read Bridgerton, but I do like Downton Abbey. And so if you like that kind of feel and you love Ted Lasso like I did, you may be interested in this. And I liked it. I liked it. I didn't love it. When you say Ted Lasso, it kind of raises the bar really, really high for me. And so it didn't make me laugh like that. It didn't move me quite like that. So maybe the marketing is just a really hard bar to set it against. And so it just might be that my expectations got set really high to start with, but it's a cute comedy. And there are some deep things that get discussed of expectations and romance across social economic barriers and found family. And there are some really cute things that as I'm thinking about it and I'm looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I did actually really enjoy it. And this is going into the little free library because I want people to enjoy it as well. And I've already read it. So why not pass it on to someone else that might be interested? But there's some like comedic elements as well. And his friends, I really, really liked his friends. So it's nice that there is this male bond thing in here as well, because I think a lot of times you see really good female friends or one good male friend that's kind of more of the comedic character. But this one has really strong male bonds. I mean, it's Earl's trip, right? So that shows you that these Earls are going on this trip. And there's another one too that is just, I think it's just called Earl's Trip. And so this is a second part to that. But I do recommend it. It was cute. Another book I read was Ashley Poston's Sounds Like Love, and I love her paranormal romances. She has several. 7 Year Slip is one of my faves. Sounds Like Love is about a songwriter who cannot write her songs anymore because she does not believe in love. She's just kind of stuck in this spot. And you also have this really famous musician, and they am I spoiling? I don't know if I'm spoiling, but they can hear into each other's minds. And so that is the premise. And it is a romance as well. As I said, it's a paranormal romance. So there is this beauty that comes through all of it. And you see these inner thoughts of these people that you might not easily be able to in other stories that are not like this magical world to it. So I really, really enjoyed it, and all the different parts that come out of it. It is very deep, and I'm a fan of Ashley Poston. So I won't say all of her books hit in the same way, but 7 Year Slip and Sounds Like Love have been top notch for me. Smartest kids in the world. I feel like I'm kind of doing this like back and forth between fiction and nonfiction because I read it all, guys, as I tell you all the time. Smartest Kids in the World and How They Got There by Amanda Ripley is this journalistic look into the top countries of the smartest kids on this PISA score, which is more of like a critical thinking skill test versus just multiple choice that happens a lot in the US. And the top countries are Finland, Korea, and Poland, which may not be the countries that you normally think of as top performing educational countries. I don't know if you do or not. Let me know if you do. But the fascinating thing for me was that their educational systems are very, very different. Like Finland doesn't have homework and they believe in a lot more independence and kids roaming and they bike home alone or they like do all these things on their own, right? Whereas Korea is much more structured, what you think of as a stereotypical Asian culture of rigor and a lot of stress around academia, right? And they perform. They perform. And then Poland is a fairly new thing because, as the book says, their education system and their ratings on these scores were not good until there was a big change that was made in the regime, in the government, and all these things. And so it's really interesting to hear these different things and not only just hear about how other countries do it, how these particular countries do it, but what can we learn from that as people that have children in the US? And it's not super easy to change, but what are the differences? Where are we falling behind when there is so much richness, so much wealth in this country, and yet we are not performing and growing our next generation as well as the other countries that might not have as much wealth and income and power in that sense. So there are a lot of thoughts here too. And again, if you want to go into depth in some of these conversations, let me know in the comments. That's how I hear from you. That's how I know what you might want more of. And I'd love to go more in depth because otherwise this video is going to be like 3 hours long and we don't want to do that. Okay, the next book, I'm going to go into a kid book that I absolutely adored, Finally Seen by Kelly Yang. I'm going to go read all her books because if you are an immigrant, if you are a child of someone that has immigrated, this is like you have to read it. You have to read it. It is a middle grade book. So I read it with my children and I was getting teary just thinking about stuff that my parents had gone through, and I was tabbing and highlighting quotes, and I want to put this in the little free library to have other kids read it too, because I think it is such an important conversation to have about different rights that immigrants do not have access to, things that immigrants have to be conscious of. But it's not just immigrants, it is, lower class folks, it is women, it is any sort of minority group. There are so many topics in here that are really important to have. And here again, there is this theme of one person. One person can really make a difference, especially for this girl. The main character, Lena, comes from China and she doesn't know the English language well. She gets made fun of by rich kids. Gets made fun of by these girls, these mean girls. And, how do we be that one person for them? And teachers play a huge role in this book as well. Adult figures. It could be friends, it could be adult figures, it can be anybody that can impact someone else's life, especially for children that are so moldable and such treasures. Just go read it. Just go read it and let's talk about it. Let's have a kid book club, a mom book club where we read books together that we think are huge impacts for our children. The second book to this is Finally Heard, which I'm reading with my kids right now. And it is all about social media and the impact of that on our children. And so that is a huge discussion to be had as well. Let's talk about it, guys. But go read it. Finally Seen by Kelly Yang. Another book I read was When I Should Have Stayed by Max Monroe. It was an ARC that I received, and it was a romance. And, I liked a lot of it, but I know miscommunication is a huge part of books and conversations, but this, I don't want to ruin it, but there was a big chunk where I went, wow, that came out of nowhere. And that's kind of a huge thing to do to someone. So that kind of turned me off on it when that happened, and the resolve wasn't like it just didn't do it for me, and it's okay. Right? We can all differ in our opinions. I'm still glad I read it, and the book, other people are going to love it, other people are not going to like it, and that is all okay. For me, it was just okay. Class Clown was one that I read by Dave Barry. If you know Dave Barry, he writes humor columns, right? And has done it for a long time. And so this is his biography, autobiography, and memoir. And it was fun to read, but it was a bit long for me. And so I have a hard time rating autobiographies and memoirs low because it is a person's story. And just because I don't resonate with it doesn't mean that it's not worthy or it's not good or it's not anything like that. I want to validate their story. Um, I just had a hard time finishing it. I would kind of stop and go, stop and go. So I did finish it, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't one that just captivated me from the beginning to the end and kept me going and wanting to just keep getting more. If I stopped, I was okay, and I kind of picked up something else and went, "Ooh, I should go finish that," and then went back to it. But it's an interesting story because he never set out to become a humor columnist, and I think that is something that resonates with a lot of people. Of you take all these different turns and you make these decisions at a point in time that is right for you, and sometimes it just leads to an even better spot that you never would have imagined for yourself. And I think he is a testament to that, of trying these different things and saying yes to things that really felt good to him and saying no to things that he felt were not in alignment with what his gifts and calling was. So that was a great read for me. It just took me a little bit of time. Another book I read was The Band by Christine Ma Kellums, who actually was my roommate in college, and her face popped up on my Instagram because she was speaking at Comic-Con, and it was just part of like the book content that I consume, right? And I reached out to her because I went, "Oh my gosh, you wrote a book. I had no idea. We hadn't really kept in good touch, but this was just a fantastic way for us to catch up with one another." And I recorded an interview with her. So go check that out. It's going to be really fun for you to hear. Because again, I told you I love hearing from author perspectives, right? Of what they thought about as they were going into it. What did they want people to get out of it? And this was another book, though, where I didn't know what to rate it because there were so many things I absolutely loved about it and these discussion points that I think we should have. And this is particularly, I think, possibly niche. Niche, is that a word? Because it is a psychology professor, and she is a psychology professor. So there are aspects that I felt like she was teaching me psychology, and that was kind of cool, actually. If you are a learner like me, you think it's kind of cool. And then it's also a canceled K-pop artist, like a really big K-pop artist. And so you kind of see the dark side of celebrityness of Korean pop bands, because it is a very different world than American boy bands and different areas of the world, right? There's a reason why they are really, really good in their performances, and they're picked from a young age to work together with other boy band mates. So I think it is a very unique story that comes out of it, and I enjoyed it. But sometimes I was going, what is going on? Like, would I act like that? Would someone act like that? There were a lot of things going on in my head because I am not super into K-pop. And so this would speak completely differently to someone that is really into K-pop or are really curious about the K-pop world. So I think people that love K-pop and have this human psychology wanting to learn part of them, I think you're really, really, really going to love it. And then some people might be like, oh, I don't know what I'm getting. And then you have people like me who are like, ooh, that's really interesting, but I'm not sure what to do with all this other stuff. And there's this mix, right? But am I glad I read it? Yes, absolutely. And did it open up opportunities for me to connect with my friend? Absolutely. And am I now more intrigued by the K-pop world and just like Korean culture in general? Yes, I am. So all these things to say, I do recommend reading it. I think it is a very interesting book that has a unique perspective because I haven't seen very many K-pop centered books. And if you have, I'd love to hear because I don't know. Maybe it's just because that's not my prime interest. I don't know how I missed talking about this one because this was one that I had to put off. I have this big old, look, it's the ARC version. I was so excited to get the ARC because I love everything Kate Stewart. If you have not heard me talk about her characters, her story building, her depth of characters just shatters your heart, but also mends it in unimaginable ways. And clearly I am a fan. I mean, look at the shirt, Although this I got from originally when I read the Ravenhood series, but this is the Tyler and Delphine story that you didn't, but it is so, so beautiful. And Tyler has made his way into my heart and so many other people's hearts because it's just like two very broken people that find home in each other. And you see the unfolding of people that don't think they deserve love. There's just so much in here. I don't even know where to start, but it tugs at your hearts. I was crying so much, as in any Kate Stewart book that I read, because you get so involved in these characters. You come to love them and root for them. And when they finally have their moment, and then you know that it is going to be heartbreaking at the end, because if you have read the Ravenhood series, you know what happens with Tyler and Delphine. This is the Legacy series, so it's the Ravenhood trilogy, and then this is book 2 of the Ravenhood Legacy series, and there's another Tyler one that's coming out at the end of the year, and I cannot wait to read that. I don't know what it's going to be, but it is like, spoiler alert, Delphine doesn't make it. And again, if you've read the Legacy or the Ravenhood series, you know what happens. So that was not a spoiler if you've read it, but if you have not read it, hopefully you heeded my spoiler warning. But the next Tyler one is the after that, right? The part that we do not know, the part where we see someone else come into his life. And so, well, I don't know how it is going to go. But when they finally get their moment and Delphine says, I hate, again, spoilers, but I hate the woman that is going to get you next. Oh, oh my gosh. It's so long, but it captivates you the whole time. So highly, highly, highly recommend. So if this resonated with you, as usual, hit that subscribe button so we can be more in touch with one another with more bookish content. I'd love to hear what book was your favorite. And if you want more reading recommendations or past reading, you can head here to the whole playlist of monthly recaps that I have done. And I'll see you in the next video.